Hey guys, GMX here. In today's video, we're going to be making a tier list of win conditions for leaders. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through each leader in Civ 6, go ahead and pop them on a tier list for which victory type they are best at. Alright, so here is the website. This is tiermaker.com. I'll leave a link for the Civ 6 tier maker down in the description below. But essentially what we're going to be doing is going through each of our leaders and assigning them either to science, culture, religious, diplomatic, domination, everything, or they do something. This one's for they're not really great at anything. But they can manage through a game. Everything is you can choose whatever you want, obviously, and the rest of them speak for themselves. Obviously, I didn't put score victory on here. That's going to be a missing condition. You can technically win by score condition, but I think that's one that you don't really want to be selected for. So maybe we'll do that instead of they do something. We'll do score here. Do something like that. Score victory. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to be using our knowledge of the game as well as the Civilopedia and going ahead and looking and seeing what category our leader falls upon for the best victory condition. So that maybe if you get paired up with a civilization, you can choose which win condition to go for. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, starting off here, we have Frederick of Germany. And I think very, very solidly, he is a very science-oriented civilization. I'm also going to pull up the wiki on the side here. Let's go pull up Germany real quick. They are very geared towards infrastructure. The Hansa is their unique district. They have the ability to capture city-states very easily, as well as having an extra military policy slot in all governments, which is pretty nice. They have the Hunsas, which are really great for industrial zones, so you get a lot of great engineers. So with that massive production, they're really geared towards a very good science victory. So we're going to pop them in this science category. Next, we have Wilhelmina. She is a trading fiend. So let's see. They have some nice bonuses here. They have trade route capacities. They get extra gold and things like that. Trade routes will provide culture. International trade routes do, and they can increase the amount of science they get from international trade routes as the game goes on. Let's see. I think for the amount of trade routes and everything and how heavily emphasized they are on trade routes, I believe that Wilhelmina would be great for a culture victory. You can get those trade routes up early, and they give you a lot of extra benefits. And having those early trade routes gives you the advantage of actually having open borders and a trade route. And combined with the fact of having open borders can easily net you some very easy tourism from other civilizations, having those trade routes as well. So you're going to be having those. That should be excellent for Wilhelmina. All right, next going to Alexander. I don't think there's any question here. Alexander is always a domination. All his units are based on that, his unique units, as well as his policies and everything like that. So if we look up here, that's Macedonia. Let's see, they got their unique units. They got 2 of them. They got a unique building, which replaces I believe it replaces the barracks. Or is that the stable? I can't remember. So their ability is conquering a city grants free Eureka, and then inspiration for each holy site or theater square. If there's encampment or campus in that city, they get their Eureka. Yeah. So for Macedonia, they have the ability to snowball really easily in the early game, as well as have the unique early units to be able to go ahead and pack a punch towards the enemy AI. So domination is very easy for Alexander there. Let's go ahead and go to Chandragupta, which is our first of the 2 Indian leaders. He is actually kind of a split between, I think, religious or domination. So if we go up here and look up India, the unique unit of Varus, which are very, very good for their army builds. They also have the Stepwell, which is pretty good. Indian cities receive follower beliefs of all religions with at least 1 follower in them. So religion is very key for them. Chandragupta is more geared towards a aggressive playstyle, where we can do a war of territorial expansion with the military training civic. as well as having some step walls and stuff to enforce, to keep up your housing and food and everything like that, so you can keep those cities as you capture them. That's really important as you conquer new cities, getting the food so you can get the population up to make sure that everything can stay loyal to you. The Varu are very strong combat units. So for Chandragupta, I would say either a religious or domination victory would be the best. And with Chandragupta, with his special abilities, I think a domination would actually be better than a religious victory. So with Chandragupta's leader ability, he has an extra bonus for combat, so that helps him out a ton. And then also gives you +5 combat strength for all units in the next 10 turns. So that's a pretty good leader for domination victories. Next, we're going to go to our Chinese leader here. I actually think these guys are really, really good for culture victories. The Great Wall gives you extra culture and gold, as well as providing some tourism in the later game. And they're very easy to get online because you get the Masonry Civic. You can get some good trade routes with these guys, and then you can also use the Crouching Tiger as some very good defense for China. So I think a culture victory is the easiest for them. And in addition to that, you also have the ability to do the First Emperor, where you can use your builders to actually expedite wonders. So you can get your ancient and classical era wonders up a lot quicker, which is going to be huge for your tourism output from those wonders in the early game. So that expedites and is an exponential curve for the rest of your game. So for China, we're going to go for culture. Next, we have our first of our Greek civilizations, which is going to be Gorgo. Gorgo is a very, very nice leader. She has some changes that came with the April update, and she has the unique building of the Acropolis, which actually is a 50% discount on the building of the Acropolis, and you get some terrain bonuses from being on hills and things like that. But for Gorgo, I think she is probably best for... It's a toss-up between domination and culture, because her hoplites and everything like that are very, very good for going for war and everything like that, and her unique ability to get plus 50% culture from your combat victories is really nice. I would say it's a toss-up between domination and culture. I would say based upon what kind of civs you have in your game, you could go for either, but I think her strongest suit is probably her culture. And then second would be domination. So that's where I'm going to put her in culture. You could argue domination in some cases though. So for a game that you don't have a lot of military strength opposing you, I would think Gorgo would be a good for domination. But if it's just a straight up game with random leaders, I would say culture is probably the best play. All right, our next leader is Trojan of Rome. He is actually a very, very nice leader that has the ability to pretty much do everything. If you think about it, with his cheap aqueducts, he has the best probably all around civilization bonuses that help you no matter what. You get free monuments in every one of your cities. Trade routes go from all your cities go straight back to the capital, so all roads lead to Rome, which is pretty cool, and gets them starting with a trading post, and that's pretty powerful. So I would actually put Trojan into everything. He's going to be our first leader into the everything category. You can pretty much do whatever you want with him. You can go for a culture victory. You could go for a science victory. You could go for a domination victory. You could go for a religious victory if you really want. I think their weakest thing is probably their religious one. Diplomatic's not too bad. Domination is pretty easy to do with them because you have your legions, which are pretty strong units, and they give you a free build charge, and then you have their forts with them. You can do a lot of cool things with them. Their culture, you already have free monuments. You're going to get early game culture. You're going to expedite through the the civic tree very quickly. It's very nice. And then science, I mean, everything they have complements science growth. They have cheap aqueducts, so you can get good industrial zones, so you can get good, great engineers. The roads gives you good trade routes, so you can feed your infrastructure, and then you can just get science stuff based off of that. There's not a lot of abilities they have that gears straight towards science, but they're a civilization that can hold their own if you go to war or something like that, that you can still continue on with science in the background or something like that. So Trojan is our first into the everything category. Next, we're going to move to Montezuma. He's of the Aztecs, so let's go ahead and look that up in the Civilopedia here. All right, the Aztecs are a unique circumstance where you can actually use your builder charges to complete 20% of production cost of a district, which is pretty nice. You do get the unique Eagle Warrior unit, so you have some very, very strong combat strength starting off. The hard part is, especially on the higher difficulties, they are very, very hard to keep going. I would say if you're playing on a lower difficulty, I'd put them straight into domination, and you can immediately start going to war with people and use your Eagle Warriors for immediately. The hard part is once you start getting to like the deity setting and everything like that, the AI already has extra combat strength against you, as well as having like 5 warriors already at the start of the game. So you're already at a disadvantage, and that plus 5 combat strength for your Eagle Warrior isn't going to make up that much of a difference, especially for early game wars. And they don't scale well as the game goes on. So you have the Eagle Warriors, so you can fend off barbs, you can fend off early aggression from the AI, but you can't go to war and go tackle them very quickly. So domination in the later stages is not very good for Montezuma in the higher difficulty settings. So I have a very hard time putting him into the domination victory. One thing you can do is, since you have the builders charges, you can get production of those districts up very, very quickly. Let's see. What does the Civilpedia say for victory types? Victory types, domination is a key for Aztecs. Yeah, I would say science victory is what I would lean towards more, to be honest. Let's see. They do have a unique ability through their entertainment complexes, which is a unique infrastructure that gives you extra amenities so that you can keep up through domination. So I think up front, through most difficulties, they're going to be a domination. They're going to be a domination leader, but you could argue a science leader as well, especially in the higher difficulties. If you're playing Emperor or Deity, I would say probably more towards science than domination, but they just don't scale very well is my big thing with them. So domination, I'm going to go here for the Aztecs and Montezuma. All right, the next leader we have is the Khmer. The Khmer, they obviously are very, very good at religious victories. But I would also argue that they could pretty much do any victory condition that they want. I just finished up a game on the DD setting, and I won a very easily with a science victory with the Khmer. I think that their ability to get extra amenities through their Grand Berets, as for the aqueducts placed next for each aqueduct, as well as all of their farms getting extra food or faith, depending on their location, to holy sites or aqueducts, are super, super nice. You also got the Persat, which is actually very cool as well, where it also gives you culture and tourism as well through the later game. So I actually think Khmer is probably going to be our next one that would go ahead and be in the everything category. And the reason for that is that with their bonuses, if you get a religion, which you most likely will with the Khmer, you're going to be able to pretty much do whatever you want after that. So you can gear your religion to science, you can gear it towards religion, you can get a diplomatic victory. Domination is also possible too, because they also have the Domri, which is a very, very strong unit. It also is a siege unit, so you can very, very easily bombard those other AI. And it's in the medieval era, which is a good spot for most of those unique units to have those advantages. The medieval era is a good era to start pushing, especially in the more difficult settings to against the AI, because usually very, very early game wars don't go so well because the other AI already have a bunch of units, but the medieval age is a good spot to go ahead and start attacking those AI. So I think they can even go for a domination victory if they really want to. I really think the Khmer is one of the first, is going to be our second leader into the everything category. All right, our next leader is the Pachacuti of the Incan Empire. They have the ability to build on mountain tiles, which is... no, they don't have the ability to build on mountain tiles. They have the ability to work mountain tiles, which gives them food to production. And then they also get +1 food later on for each adjacent terrace. farm, which is a unique thing that you can build farms on hills very early in the game, which is actually really, really cool. So you get extra production and extra food with these guys, which is really, really nice. So let's see here. With the Incan Empire, it's kind of a toss-up because there's nothing really in their abilities or anything that really gears them straight towards one of these win conditions. But if you think about it, being next to a lot of mountains would gear me to one of two things. That would gear me towards either a science or a religious victory. So what I'd probably do here with Pachacuti is probably put him towards the scientific, but he is probably one that if you weren't near a lot of mountains, I would automatically put him into the everything category because you can pretty much use him for anything else. Those terrace farms are going to be great for getting up both food and production, and being around mountains would be very helpful for science. So I'm actually going to put Pachacuti in the science category here. The next leader we have is Teddy Roosevelt, Bull Moose to be exact, and this unique leader has the abilities of having the P-51 Mustang, which is a unique air unit, as well as having the infrastructure of Film Studio, which is for the theater square and replaces the broadcast center. For Bull Moose Teddy, they go ahead and get the leader bonus of antiquities and parks, which gives them for each breathtaking tile, they get +2 science when adjacent to a natural wonder or mountain, and then +2 culture when adjacent to wonders or woods, and then +1 appeal for all tiles with a national park. So they are very, very much geared towards either a scientific win or a culture win here. But if you actually think about it, so a lot of their unique abilities and everything very much gears them towards either a scientific or culture victory. You get a lot of passive science from Teddy, from that breathtaking appeal against those natural wonders and stuff, or the mountains. But you also have the broadcast center replacement for Teddy, as well as the extra culture you get from those breathtaking tiles as well. So with Teddy, I would put him more towards the culture, but I think very heavily you could put him to science. I think culture is his key play, though. You could also argue a religious or diplomatic or domination. I think Teddy is one of the ones that is very, very close to being in the everything category, but I very much think culture is his strong suit here. This is the one that if you go for, you'd probably win this every single time unless you have some of those other heavy culture victory civs in your game. So, we're going to go ahead and put Bull Moose Teddy into culture. All right, next we have Mathis Corvinus of the Hungarian Empire. They have some unique abilities for +50% production towards districts and buildings built across from a river, which is really, really nice. And they also have the ability to get black armies as well as Hussars, which are their unique unit. And they also get the thermal bath. Let's go ahead. Unique units to them. And it is built in the entertainment complex and replaces the zoo, which is pretty cool. You get an additional amenity and extra production as well, which is pretty nice. For Hungary, so they are very, very good at actually domination because they have the ability to leverage those city-states for pretty cheap. They could be good for diplomatic, because you have probably are getting a lot of envoys and doing all of that stuff. So you have a lot of diplo favor. Religious, not so much. And cultural and science, they just don't have the abilities that immediately present that to me. Their ability to build districts really cheap is a bonus, but the fact that they don't have any unique units, unique buildings specifically for those conditions, I really think a domination is very, very key for them, especially given the fact that you can leverage those the city-state militaries very, very easily. So we're going to go ahead and put Mathis into the domination victory. I think you could argue something like a cultural science due to the fact that they have the ability to get the 50% production, though. So, but domination is the leading charge for them. All right, next up we have the Nubian Empire with Aminatorre. They have the ability to get +30% production towards ranged units, and then they also get +50% combat experience, and then you get +1 production for mines over strategic resources, and then +2 gold for over mines over bonus and luxury resources. They have the unique Nubian Empire, Nubian Pyramid, as well as the Paititi archer, which they can get very, very early on. This civilization, if you look at a lot of their things, they're very, very geared towards early ranged units, which would lead you to believe that they're very, very good at domination. But that kind of doesn't scale very well throughout everything. You can get those Paititi archers up very quickly, but going against the AI, it might not actually go ahead and go in your favor in the long run. And they kind of scale out after the medieval era. Once someone else has crossbows, your archers are pretty much pointless at that point. You have to get them to crossbows as well. So I would say for Nubian, actually putting them into domination for the early, let's see, how do I want to phrase that? For Nubia, a domination victory is very, very... It makes a lot of sense if you're playing on a lower difficulty. On the higher difficulties, though, such as Emperor or Deity, I really, really think they are better geared towards a science or a culture victory. Their units don't scale well into the later game, but if you're playing on the easier difficulties, you can very easily scale up very quickly with your Paititi archers and go ahead and rush the AI and collect a lot more cities, and then go ahead and exponentially advance that and make sure that you get that domination victory. So I'm actually going to put the Nubian Empire into domination here. Our next leader is Kupe of the Maori. They actually get the ability to do shipbuilding and embarking, all of that very early on. For unimproved tiles, you get extra production. Starts off in the early game and then it scales throughout the game. You get +2 for mercantilism and +3 for conservation. And you also get culture bombs for fishing boats, which is pretty nice too. The one downside for having Kupe is that you can't actually not earn any great riders with them, so that's kind of unfortunate for them. They have the unique Maori, which replaces the Theater Square Amphitheater, and you get +1 culture and +1 faith in all your cities, and with a passable feature, and then +1 tourism in all the cities tiles with the feature with flight. The one downside is you can't put any great work slots into the Maori. For the Maori, I would actually probably put them towards a cultural victory here. I think they're a lot like Teddy Roosevelt here, where you could go for a science victory. You could also go for a religious victory here because you already have very, very early on embarking and being able to enter ocean tiles very early on. So spreading your religion is going to be super quick. But I think they're really geared towards the cultural side of things, mainly because of their unique abilities, as well as their extra production they get from keeping things unimproved, which is pretty nice. The one hard part about having them as culture victory is that they can't earn any great riders, so you're going to be delayed a little bit, so they're not going to have a really good early game start for tourism victory, but once you can go past for great riders and start getting your art museums or archaeology museums, you can scale up very, very, very quickly. I think they're very good for that, especially since you have early exploration. You know where everyone is. You have the ability to settle a lot of cities on a lot of coastlands, and getting those trade routes are going to be really easy as the Maori, because you are able to settle cities right next to other civilizations or close to them on different continents very, very early on in the game. And yeah, you can just get those very, very quickly. So we're going to go ahead and put Kupe in the culture tree. I think you could argue science or religion as well, and even diplomatic too. Domination, probably not so much, since they are more of a sea-based civilization. I would think the only way you'd be able to do domination well is if you're on like an archipelago or fractal lands map, so that you could go ahead and use them in ocean tiles and things like that to be able to get that domination victory. But I think they fit comfortably in the culture. They could probably do a little bit of everything, but culture really stands out to me for them. All right, now let's go to the Polish Empire. The Polish Empire, we're going to go ahead and look here. They have some good abilities where they can build when building an encampment or fort triggers a culture bomb to the surrounding tiles, and then you get a military policy slot, and all governments are converted into wildcard policy slots. So you can really utilize your policies very, very easily with Poland here. They get the Winged Hussar as well as a unique building which actually goes into Commercial Hub. It gives you +3 gold and then +4 gold for domestic trade routes, and then it continues your Great Merchant points and then +2 production from your international trade routes. I think the Polish Empire is one of the few actual leaders that would actually probably go into the score category. They could go for a domination victory, but they're not really geared towards anything that would actually lead you to go for a domination victory. I believe they are really good at starting up a religion, or you see a lot the AI will go for a religion with them. I think they are good at domination. I think they're okay at pretty much everything. The one thing I wouldn't put them towards is a science victory, but they're not extremely suited well for anything. I think here they're my first pick for something that I wouldn't really know what to go with, and it kind of would depend on the game and who the other AI are in the game for me to go for anything in particular. So they're one of the ones that are not exceptionally good at anything, but they're not good at everything like the Trojan or Khmer are. I really think they are ones that you really can't go for anything at the very start. I think you could argue with the Winged Hussars, you can go for a domination victory because they are a Renaissance era heavy cavalry, and they can do a lot of good things. They ignore a zone of control, they push back enemies, all that fun stuff. And then with the culture bombs for encampments or forts. But the big thing is that doesn't really help a whole lot with other things that you have. That Winged Hussars could very easily get combated by pikemen super quickly. Or even like having musketmen or something like that can very much just dismantle those Winged Hussars as well. So I really, really think Poland is our first one that's going to go into a score victory. The score victory one is actually not a true score victory. It's just not great at anything here, and that's where I think this guy needs to stay. This lady, of the Polish Empire, I think the score victory, you could argue domination, but I think they're not exceptionally great at anything. They're not horrible at anything either. You could argue religious as well because they are notorious for getting up a religion as well. Next on our list is Gandhi of the Indian Empire. We already put up Chandragupta and put him in the domination. Here, I think Gandhi obviously is the easy choice is religion here. All of his unique abilities are geared straight for religious victory here. You could argue that with the Varu and everything like that, you could push for a domination victory, but I think Chandragupta, his abilities really are gearing towards that domination victory, where Gandhi's is very much the religious victory. I would say that you could push for a cultural religious victory with Gandhi, but I think the religion is probably the most important part with Gandhi in getting that up. With the Stepwell as his unique improvement and everything like that, it just makes the most sense. I don't know why that went there. I want to click out of that. The Stepwell gives you extra faith and food, and then prevents food loss from droughts. And it's just a really, really good improvement that you can get very early on, that you can expedite your culture gains per turn very, very quickly. So religious without a doubt for Gandhi here. All right, next we have Mayan Empire. We have Montezuma here. And Montezuma is one of the ones that I would automatically put towards the everything category. Thinking about them, if there was an economic win in Civ 6, they would be the economic win leader for sure. They are just notorious for getting a stupid amount of gold. And with that gold, you can pretty much do whatever you want with a civilization. You can buy all the units you want. You can buy any improvements you want. You can buy any buildings you want. You can pretty much do whatever you want here. You could buy units, the religious things. It's really easy to get up a religion with them. Easy to get your cultural buildings. You can buy the great works from the other AI with all the money you're earning. You can get a science victory very, very easily too. I think they're one of the leaders that is probably in my top 5 of everything. I'm probably going to there's probably about 5 leaders that are going to be in that everything category, and he is probably the one leader that you can pretty much go for anything for him and he'd win. Maybe not maybe not very, very, very well at every single thing, but he's pretty darn good at all of them, just because of that gold input is just so crazy. So yeah, we're definitely putting them into the everything category. Next we have Tamar of the Georgian Empire. All right, so Tamar of the Georgian Empire. So Tamar used to be pretty much just an exclusively religious victory type leader, just because of her abilities. But once the April update hit, I really think Tamar could be a domination victory type too. I do still think that most of her things are geared towards the religious victory type, though. She does have the unique strengths and unity civ ability, so that golden ages and stuff like that still happen. You get the regular bonuses and things like that, so you can still expedite your error score throughout the ages. And then you also have the ability to get extra wildcard policy slots when you're in those golden ages. You have a unique unit, and then you have unique walls and everything like that. So getting a domination victory is possible with them, but I really, really, really think the religious victory is the best thing for them. They also have the new ability that whenever you have the combat strength, kind of like Gorgo, whenever you defeat a unit, you get half their combat strength in faith, which is really, really nice. But I really think they are more geared to the religion than they ever are to the domination. The domination is a possibility, but immediately my mind goes towards religion for Tamar. Next is Sumeria. Sumeria obviously is Gilgamesh. He is a fantastic leader, and I really, really think Sumeria is a very, very good scientific victory leader. You could argue for culture or anything like that, but they are very, very geared towards the early game in getting up a nice war carts, which are a very, very good unit. Very, very strong, lots of movement. Kind of acts like a chariot, a heavy chariot, which is really cool. And they also have a ziggurat, which is a unique building that can get additional culture and science just based on if they are next to a river or anything like that. They are very, very nice. The only downside is you can't build them on hills, so around rivers is really good. You can get that extra science very early on and start expediting your civilization towards that science victory. You could argue that a culture victory is very easy for them as well, but I would think that they are best at the science victory no matter what, and the rest of the things they're very decent at. You could get a good domination victory with them with their war carts. You could go for a diplomatic victory. Religious victory is possible with them. You can also say a culture victory, but science victory stands out the most, mainly because of their unique ziggurat, which a lot of players don't use too much because it is not an amazing improvement, only 2 science, but it can help you out a ton. Wouldn't put it past anyone to go for any other victory type depending on the other AI, but I really, really think their strong suit is science victories here. All right, the next leader we have is Robert the Bruce of the Scottish Empire. I believe he is number 1 easily science victory. I don't think there's any question about this. Robert the Bruce is really geared towards having high amenities in your cities. You get extra science for happy cities and production, as well as getting extra science and great engineer points for the campus and the industrial zone. And then if your cities are static, you get double those points too, which is insane. So having a lot of amenities in these cities is insane. Getting those great engineer and extra great scientist points are very, very cool. But I wouldn't knock them out of a culture victory too. You think about it, they also have the golf course, which is a very nice one that gives you additional amenities as well as culture in all your cities, which is very, very nice. And I think you get some... Do you get tourism from them? No, you don't. But they're still pretty nice to get. I would say they are very, very much geared towards a science victory. I don't think there's anything else you could say. that would convince me of like a religious, diplomatic, or domination. The Highlanders, not a very, very good unit. It's just a scout unit that replaces the ranger. The religious thing, you could get a religion with them, but I don't think I would do a religion just to hold within my own empire. I don't think I would go for a religious domination, religious victory with them. But culture is something you could definitely do with them as well if you really wanted to. But science all the way with them. I think it's head and shoulders above the other wind types here for Scotland. Okay, for Cleopatra is our next leader here of the Egyptian Empire. Let's go ahead and take a look at her abilities and everything like that. She gets plus 15% to production towards districts and wonders built next to a river. But with their abilities, they actually get to build districts on floodplains without them being damaged by floods or anything like that. They have their chariot archer, which is a very good early on defensive unit or attacking unit that you can use. They also have the Sphinx, which is also a very, very early infrastructure thing, which gives you extra culture and faith, as well as additional appeal for things. So with Cleopatra, there's three main ones that I would go for Cleopatra. I would either go for a culture, a religious, or an early domination game with them. I think on the easier settings, you can easily go do a domination victory with her. I think diplomatic could be good too. But I very much think either religious or culture with her. And I want to lean more towards a culture victory with her. You could also argue a science victory, but I think it would depend on the AI that you're up against and a couple other factors to go for a science victory. But I really think that with the ability to get that extra production for wonders, I think getting the culture victory with Cleopatra is going to be your best bet and easiest thing to choose from. But this is a toss-up. I could flip a coin between here, religious or culture. I think culture is the best way to go, though. I think the extra faith from the Sphinx and everything would help you with your religious victory, and they are just a good civilization for religions. But I think that culture with the extra production is the key factor that leads them to a culture victory type leader. The next leader we have is Pericles of the Greece Empire. I think this is without a question just going to culture. I don't think there's anything else that I would do here. You could argue for science for some things, but I think with their ability to have an additional policy slot in all of their governments, having the cheap acropolises and the hoplites, they're 100% a strictly culture victory type leader. I don't think you can really question anything else about them. I think you could go for other victory types, but head and shoulders, like 3 or 4 head and shoulders above everything else is their culture ability to get culture wins. Our next leader here is Catherine de Dimici. She is a leader. This is going to be the regular one. This is not going to be the Magnificence Catherine. She has the abilities of the diplomatic visibility, as well as Black Queen, which gives you additional, as spies give you as much diplomatic visibility as possible. So you get a free spy with castles and everything like that. These guys are actually really geared towards a diplomatic victory. All their policies and everything like that are very geared to a diplomatic victory type. You could argue also a cultural victory type due to the chateau. The chateau is a unique building that gives you additional culture and gold, and plus additional appeal based upon their location to if built to a wonder or a river. So they're really nice if you want to get up some national parks or something like that. But I really, really think they're very geared towards a diplomatic victory based upon the fact that they have some early spies, and a lot of their abilities are geared towards those as well. You also could do, well, let's see. They do have the Grand Tour thing, so I'm actually going to switch from diplomatic and go to culture here. They do have the double tourism from any wonder. I forgot about that little excerpt there, where they actually get the double tourism from those wonders. So if you can get extra wonders very quickly with this wonder production card, and then say if you got the skyscrapers promotion as well, you could very, very easily get a bunch of wonders in the middle part of the game and very much expedite your culture victory there. So if they weren't in, if it weren't for that, I would have put them and have them be our first diplomatic victory type leader. So I think with Catherine de Medici is going to be in a culture victory type. The next civilization we have is Australia, and we have John Curtin. John Curtin is amazing on coastal tiles. He is great for that. So you can get up a bunch of harbors. You can get a lot of gold from that, as well as getting the outback stations, which are really good as well. John Curtin gets a lot of bonuses from being next to charming items and things like that, so with breathtaking appeal. So with John Curtin, the commercial hubs, campuses, holy sites, and theater squares all gain a +1 or +3 depending if you're on charming or breathtaking appeal. So you can pretty much go for any one of those victory types. You can go for a science victory type with them. You could go for a cultural victory type. You could go for a religious victory type. The one thing I would say they're not amazing at is a domination victory type. But if you're getting up good science and things like that, you can eventually lead up to a domination victory type. I really think John Curtin is one of the civilizations that we can also put towards the everything category. His abilities and everything like that are great for any victory type. With the ability to get +3 housing on coastal cities with land down under, really expedites your ability to get up those harbors, and not expedites your ability to get harbors, expedites your ability to get your cities growing, working a lot of tiles, getting better production, food, all of that stuff to grow your cities even larger. And so you can really gear that towards whatever kind of victory condition you want. And if you get harbors up, which you probably should because you're John Curtin, you're settling on the coast, those cities are going to be very powerful coastally. So getting those harbors with trade routes up is going to be good to get you extra gold, so you can pretty much buy your way into any victory type with them, which is very good too. Also, you get extra production from your from some of your pastures, and you can do your outback stations to get even more production from that as well. So John Curtin is going into the everything category for us. All right, for Suleiman, he is actually a very, very good domination type victory kind of leader. He has the ability to get siege units very, very easily. They train 50% faster and get +5 combat strength against those district defenses, which is really, really nice. And the cities you conquer don't lose population and receive +1 amenities and +4 loyalty per turn. So you're going to be able to hold on to those units really, really good. The one thing that they do have, which is kind of weird, is they have a unique Corsair, which is a naval unit. It doesn't really help you too much with bombard strength or anything like that onto cities, but if you have like naval battles, they help out a ton. Grand Bazaar you also have that replaces the bank. It gives you great merchant points, lowers lower production costs, and then you get an extra strategic resource for each type in that city, and then +1 amenity for every luxury resource the city has improved. So that's pretty nice there as well. So they are very much geared towards a domination victory. I think they're pretty good also at potentially a religious victory, but I think their main stick is going to be a domination victory. All their abilities gear them straight towards that. Moving on, we have the Japanese Empire with Hojo as their leader. I think Hojo is one of the next ones we can put into the everything category here. Hojo is a really, really good leader. His abilities to get +1 adjacency bonus for each each adjacent district to one another just really expedites the ability to build whatever districts you want and still get good districts. So instead of the +0.5, you get a +1 for them. You also have a very, very strong medieval unit with the samurai, and then you also get the electronics factory that replaces the factory in your industrial zones, which is really, really cool as well, and gives you extra culture as well. They are just a really, really good civilization. You can hold a religion and do a culture or a science victory, or you can go for a science victory, cultural victory, diplomatic victory, domination. You can pretty much do whatever you want with these guys. They're one of the ones that are a lot like Rome, where their bonuses are just super, super nice and stack very well with one another. So you can pretty much go for whatever you want. I would say if you're new to the game, either Hojo or Trojan is probably your best leaders to choose from, because you can pretty much build whatever and still be okay. and still get some good adjacencies, still get good good armies, skilled military strength, as well as being able to get good production for culture things like for wonders, or just be able to get up those holy sites really quickly as well. All right, the next leader is our Korean leader here, and I think immediately, I don't think there's any question, anyone in the game knows that when you find Korea in your game, it's always going to be a hard-fought battle for a science victory. They geared for science. They're geared for science every single time. That's exactly what they go for. I think they are a science powerhouse. They have their unique Sewons that gets +4 if they're not +4 science if they're not adjacent to any other district and are on a hill. They have a lower production cost. You can get them very, very quickly. You only get +1 science great scientist per turn, but I think they're really, really good no matter what for a science victory. And the fact that you can put them wherever, just on a hill, and they get an automatic +4 is amazing. You do lose out on the adjacency bonuses of those Sewons being in other things. They don't have adjacency bonuses for anything else except for -1 for the adjacent districts. But that's also really strong too, because you could be in the middle of nowhere with just a single hill with that Sewon and not have to have anything else. The also nice thing about it too is that if you have, I think it is farms adjacent to it, you can get extra food, if I recall that correctly. Let's see. Yes, additional food from farms next to Sewons will barely be enough to set you apart from other civilizations, but it does help out a ton too. So Sewons are really, really strong there, and automatically Korea goes straight to the top for that science victory for me. All right, the next leader and civilization we have is the Congo with Mbemba. I think they are actually very, very geared towards either a cultural or diplomatic victory type here. They are a very, very good leader at getting great people points. And I very much think that having them go for a culture victory is actually really, really strong here. You can't get a faith with them, which is kind of upsetting, because if you did, religious victory all the way with these guys. But the fact that you can hold a lot of artifacts and things like that, and you get extra food, production, faith, and gold from all of that, that's insane to get. That would be extremely good to get early on. If you got a tribal village with a relic in it very early on, Congo is, boom, to the sky. They're going to be really, really awesome there. You could argue for something like a science victory or a diplomatic victory, but I really think the Congo is head and shoulders for culture victory type. The next civilization we have is the Zulu. The Zulu led by Shaka. I think these guys immediately go for a domination victory every single time. They're one of those leaders. If you settle next to them and they are in your game, they're going to try to go to war with you. I think they are very, very geared towards that, mainly because they have unique district that replaces the encampment, that gears you straight towards that. You get you get a great general point there. It's also half the cost to build it as well, so you can get them up very, very quickly. I think automatically all their things gear you straight towards that. They also have the Impi, which replaces the pikeman. That's a really strong unit that comes in the medieval era, which is, as I said before, a very, very good era to start going to war with the AI, especially in the higher difficulties. I think you could get away with an early victory, early domination with these guys as well on the lower settings, but this really, really amplifies the fact for that as well. It's low production and gold. The Impi also has the lower production and gold to create it as well. The really, really cool thing about the Congo as well is, not the Congo, for the Zulu as well, is that when you're capturing a city, your conquering unit will turn automatically into a corps or an army if the necessary civs are unlocked. You also get +3 loyalty per cities with a garrison unit, and then increasing the +5 if the garrison unit is a corps or army, which it should be if you're attacking into with a non-corps army, and get that upgraded automatically. So your combat strength can scale very, very good with the Zulu here. They are just a powerhouse for building, going to war early, getting some units online, and then snowballing. They're a really, really good snowball domination civ, so they're going straight to domination there. Russia is a leader that is automatically comes to my mind as one of the better leaders in the game. They have extra faith and production from their tundra tiles, so that any tundra city you settle is still going to be really good. They also have the ability to get pretty much all their tiles. I think you get 2 rings of your tiles automatically when you settle your city, which is insane. Obviously, getting the ability to get up your getting faith really early on in the game is amazing. You also have unique infrastructure, which is the Lavra. It replaces the holy site. You get great writer, great artist, and great musician points, and 2+2 great prophet points return. So you're really guaranteed a religion if you go for Russian Empire. They are very, very good. These guys, I really think, are one of the other leaders that you could definitely put into the everything category. I think their one thing that they're really not good at is probably domination, but religious, culture, diplomatic, or science, easy wins. With them, you could get that stuff really easy. I do think that probably culture and religious are probably their 2 strongest things, so I would actually probably put Peter into the religious category to start off, and then culture after that. So I think in terms of tiers, I think it goes religion, culture, science, diplomatic, then domination. So I think they're really, really good. I think it'd be almost a coin flip between religious and culture. I think they're like right here next to each other, and then you got science like here, and then religious, diplomatic, domination right here. Like it's very, very, very close and very tight. But I think religious will win out with Peter. You could very easily go with that. The tundra tiles, getting you all that extra faith, is going to make it super easy to keep buying and pumping apostles and all of that fun stuff there. But the fact that the Lavra has all the great writer, great musicians, and great artist points automatically puts me towards culture as well. But I really, really think the religious stuff is going to win out over all the cultural items as well. All right, next we have our first of the 2 Mongolian leaders. This is going to be Genghis Khan here. I think immediately when everyone's mind goes to for Genghis Khan is domination, and I don't think that's going to change in this tier list. Domination is really, really good for them. The fact that they have trade routes immediately create a trading post. They get some combat strength when you have diplomatic visibility. Genghis Khan in particular gets cavalry units get +3 combat strength and have a chance to capture the defeated cavalry class enemy units. So you can very much explode and snowball your army very, very quickly if there's additional cavalry units. If you think there's a barb encampment that has an enemy horseman that comes by, and you go ahead and go kill it and get that promotion for it, you automatically get another cavalry unit, and then you can just go trample an AI if you want. Easily one of the civs that I gear straight towards domination whenever I think of them. I think you could argue that you could go from a domination into a cultural or science victory with them after you conquer a couple civs. You're going to have so much more land and infrastructure than them that you can just excel your game throughout. But I think you can make that argument with any of the domination leaders that we have here. But I really, really think domination is the best course of action for Genghis Khan here. All right, next we have Cyrus of the Persian Empire. They get +1 trade route capacity with political philosophy, so you automatically get traders very, very early on, as well as getting extra culture and science from our domestic trade, culture and gold from your domestic trade routes. I think this civilization is very, very much geared towards a cultural win here. They are always one of those civilizations, whenever I see them in a game, they're going for a cultural win, and then backing up with probably a science win here. I really think they are geared towards more of a cultural victory because they have the Paradise. Yes, where you get culture, gold, appeal, and then additional culture and gold if you're adjacent to some districts, which is really nice because you can get it really early on and really establish where you want to build your national parks and stuff later in the game very, very quickly. And you could complement it with things such as goddess of earth goddess and get extra faith that way too, so you can purchase your naturalist or anything like that. I think they have all of their civ abilities really lead to a good culture victory here. You could also argue since they have the immortal unit as well, they are very good for very early domination or a very good hold against an enemy AI attacking you. You could go ahead and take out another civilization and then expedite your culture victory with them as well. So it's a very good all-around civilization that's very geared towards culture that I can see you can make an argument for science as well for them as well. Our next leader is the fabulous Canadian leader, Wilfred L'oreal. And I think this is one of the first leaders I'm going to be putting into the diplomatic win type. This is one of the ones that with the April update, I could very much put them straight into the cultural one because of the ice hockey rinks and all of that. But I think this is one of the first civilizations I ever got a win with, and it was automatically domination, a diplomatic victory type as well. I got into Civ a little bit later, and I really enjoyed playing them, and it was really easy for me to go ahead and get a diplomatic victory with them. The fact that you can't have a war declared on you early on, the fact that you can excel your empire to whatever you want, I think diplomatic is a nice win condition for Canada, supplemented right after that with a culture victory here. I think if you're going to win with a civilization, I think you can go for a diplomatic victory. I would either choose Wilfred L'oreal or Kupe for those diplomatic victories, because most AIs don't, I mean, they can't go to war with you with Wilfred, so you're going to get Diplo favor really early on, which would be really nice. I know a lot of people will probably put them in the cultural victory type rather than the diplomatic. I just really think that a diplomatic very much suits them. I just like it a lot, just because their immunity and earning adjacent diplomatic favor from tourism and emergencies, which is really nice. Cree is a very interesting civilization. They automatically get trade route capacity and a free trade route with the pottery technology, which is super early on in the game. You can immediately establish trade routes with other victories. With that, you also have the ability to get extra yields from those trade routes, if based on camps and pastures in those towns that it's trading to, and then you get shared visibility with all your alliances. So that's a really strong. You have the unique early scout that you can get that's as strong as a warrior, and the mecha wops as well, which are also very early on in the game. This leader is one of those leaders that I really believe that you can, once you get in the game, the fact that they have super good early game strength with their scouts, as well as the super early trade routes to get up good commercialism and getting up good funds and everything like that. These guys are very much geared to pretty much playing any victory type you want. I think they're going to go into the everything category here. They're really good at getting early structures up. You can get a lot of early gold. You can get extra good, very good internal trade routes if you want to do domestic trade routes. That I think they're one of those civilizations that as soon as you can pretty much expand into whatever you want. You could go straight for culture, you could go for religion, you could go for diplomacy, you could go for domination, because your trade routes will give you free early roads, so you can go straight towards your enemy. Diplomatic, you can play the safe game and just be the peacemaker between everyone and go for diplomacy. You could go for science and just build up your infrastructure really quick and buy all your buildings with gold and everything because you have all of those, or internal trade routes to get the extra production. or just gaining culture. I think they're really geared to pretty much a little bit of everything. Okay, the next leader is Eleanor of Aquitine. I don't know why it's so hard for me to pronounce that. Eleanor of Aquitine. She is of the French civilization here. She's also of the English as well. She gets great works in her cities, cause loyalty flips with for each great works in her cities causes a foreign civilization within 9 tiles to lose 1 loyalty per turn. And then so whenever a city also flips loyalty, it automatically goes to Eleanor. It doesn't have that in-between period where it's a free city. Let's see. She also, as being the French Empire, she also gets Grand Tours, so she gets extra wonders, extra production towards wonders, and double tourism from them as well. She can also build the chateau, I believe, whenever she's in the game. And she is also a very, very good leader in terms of tourism, and also being able to culture flip some cities, which is actually really nice. So I think Eleanor of France is going to go straight into the cultural tier here. Next, we have the English Eleanor, which is slightly a little bit different. You actually get the British museums with her instead, as well as the Royal Navy Dockyard. So she is geared more towards the actual culture things through the British Museum, but she also has the ability with the Navy Royal Navy Dockyard to get half cost harbors that you can expedite your gold and everything like that through those cities. So for the English, they're really decent at a lot of unique things, but they're not particularly strong in every one type of win condition. You can get your artifact slots for archaeology museums, automatically themes them when you're filled. You can get extra coal and iron from your resources extracted from mines with Eleanor, but they don't have a true win victory that they are going for with a lot of their abilities and benefits and everything like that. I really think Eleanor, the British one, is actually going to go straight into our score victory here. They're not great at anything that I could pop them into the everything category. I think these are like your S tier kind of leaders for the everything category, and these are like your C tier. Like, you could go for this, you could also go for this. Nothing really stands out, and they're not excelling at any of them either. I think all the ones like Trojan, Khmer, Montezuma, these guys are all going ahead and excelling every single time whenever they choose one of those victory types. I think Eleanor and same with Poland, like you could choose one, but the abilities and bonuses you're getting aren't going to expedite that process at all. I think it's going to be a marginally okay win condition that you could scale up eventually depending on if you flip a city or two, but I don't think they're excelling at anything in particular. So I think she would be pretty much a C tier for everything every type of win type she's doing, but I think the leaders that are up here are like an A or S tier for building every type of win type. So she's going to be in the score victory type down there. Okay, the next we're going to do is Pedro II of the Brazilian Empire. Brazil. All right, Brazil. Pedro II. He is very, very good at getting great people points. So, what does that mean in terms of victory conditions? Well, it's kind of a toss-up for me. I think they are probably more geared towards a cultural victory type of all the kind of victory types. The argument could very much be made for a diplomatic, a religious, or a science victory type. I think domination is their least strong suit. The main reasons are that they're great people points. I don't think they get additional resources from great general points or great admiral points. So they are very, very geared towards just the basic core great people points through their street carnivals, which you get extra great merchant, great writer, great artist, or great musician points, and great engineer points. So that'd be really, really good. The one thing that leads me more towards culture than it is science is that these street carnivals don't go for any great scientist. You can still get really, really good campuses, especially with the Amazon feature here that Brazil has. But the fact that most of their street carnivals are geared towards these other great people that are more beneficial for a tourism victory, like great merchants, those are really, really good for getting monopolies and things like that. So I really, really think that we need to go for a cultural victory here with Pedro II. That's going to be my win condition for them. All right, next, Qatarja, Indonesian Empire. They have the ability to get coast and lake tiles, provide plus 0.5 adjacency bonuses for holy sites, campuses, industrial zones, and theater squares. Entertainment complexes provide an additional amenity against those districts. You'll get the unique unit of Zhong, which replaces the frigate in the medieval era, as well as the Kampong, which can be built on I think coastal lake tiles, yes, and gives you extra production, food, housing, and a little bit of tourism as well. Qatarja is one of the civilizations that I think they are kind of like Eleanor here, where they don't really have anything in their abilities that gears you straight towards one kind of a victory condition or another. I think you could pretty much go for anything decently. But I think their one downfall is domination. I don't think they have a very, very, very strong domination victory type, but I think they're decent at everything else. They're decent at diplomacy, they're decent at religious, they're decent at culture, they're decent at science based on what you're doing. I think you're going to be able to find a victory condition in any one of those win types. But I think they are going to be our next civilization into the score victory type. I think you could get a lot out of them, but I really, really think they excel in pretty much nothing. They're not the A tier or S tier of any type victory type at all. But I do think they'd be the worst for domination. Not the worst of all civilizations, but their worst victory type for Qatarja would be domination, where the rest of them are pretty decent at. So let's go ahead and put them into the score victory type. Now, as a reminder, the score victory type is only ones that aren't really, really great at everything. They're decent at everything. A score victory type is they're not great at anything in particular. So that's why they're there. Mapuche has their unique ability, which gives cities with governors plus 5% culture and plus 5% production, and then plus 10% combat experience for units trained in that city. Let's see. And then you also get those yields tripled when a governor is placed in a conquered city. So that immediately would throw out that there would probably be a very good domination victory. But let's go ahead and look at everything else. They have a Malon Raider, which is their unique unit that replaces let's see, what does it replace? Oh, it doesn't replace anything. It actually is their unique unit that is just a light cavalry unit in the Renaissance era, which is actually a pretty good era. Like I've talked about before, the Renaissance era or the medieval era are both good eras to go to war and try to dominate through. So getting those riders would be really good there for domination victory here. Let's see. They also have the ability of Swift Hawk. With each enemy unit defeated within the territory of an enemy city, it'll reduce the loyalty by 20, and each pillage tile will reduce its loyalty by 5. So with this ability, you can actually go and conquer cities by flipping them independent, which would be a lot easier to do. So you don't even have to attack some cities directly. So with their abilities here of Lautaro and the Mapuche, I'm going to actually put them into a domination victory type. I do think that you could go for any of the other victory types as well with them. I think they're strongest at domination, and everything else they're good at. So they're great domination, good at diplomatic, good at religious, good at cultural, good at science. If they weren't as good as domination, I think they would go into the score victory as well. But those bonuses will really lead them to be a good domination type victory. All right. Next we have Sweden. With Sweden, I don't even think I need to look at her abilities or anything like that. Sweden automatically goes to the cultural win condition. The fact that she gets the World's Fair, the Nobel Peace Prize in her games, she can get up the open air museums in all of her cities very early on. With conservation, right? No, nationalism. Yeah, that's pretty, not super early, but you can get that in every single city. You can get a lot of tourism from her. You get plus 50 diplomatic favor upon recruiting a great person. And then you get plus additional great engineer from factories and plus additional great scientists for universities. With Christina, every wonder with 2 or more slots, the building with 3 or more slots automatically themes when filled, which is insane. And that means you'll double your culture and tourism from each one of your great works. So Minerva in the North is accelerating all your tourism very, very early on once you get all of those things filled in. So if you get your archaeology museums, you don't have to have them of the same type or of the same era or from the different leaders. So you could just have a themed archaeology museum. Same with art museums. If you get 3 of them, doesn't matter what's in there. You can just pop it in and you're good. You're themed. You really don't have to worry about flip-flopping and theming all of that. They're very, very, very good for that culture victory. And I think you could argue things for a science victory based upon their Nobel Prize civ ability to get the extra great engineer and great scientist points from universities. But I think the culture victory really, really trumps all the other victory types that you could go for. I think number 1 is culture. Right behind that's trailing for science, and everything else they're decent at. And that's about it. I think domination is the one thing that they would really, really suck at. But everything else they'd be really good at. Diplomatic would be up there too. So, the Physnesian Empire. We have Dido here. Let's see. They are nice because they get the Eureka for writing very, very early on. They also have the ability to Mediterranean colonies. So, if you settle a city on the same continent, you automatically, on the coast of the same continent that you have your capital founded on, that city automatically gets 100% loyalty. So what that means is you could very much forward settle another civilization and stop them from settling on the coast on the same continent that you are on. So it's very good for forward settling, holding some things like that. And then your settlers also gain extra sight and movement, so you can actually get those guys out and about very, very quickly. But with Dido isn't geared specifically for any kind of win condition. She has a unique building, which would be the harbor, which costs less production, but the harbor is mainly for trade and everything like that, rather than any particular win condition that you are actually going for. So they're good at getting you gold and everything like that. You could pretty much make a good case for any victory type with them, depending on your circumstance for the game. The fact that you have a lot of harbors and stuff would mean a lot of trade routes, which means a lot of gold, so you can buy a lot of units to get up domination. You could settle a lot of coastal cities and just kind of hold off the other AI and go for a diplomatic victory type, because the wonders that would be really good for a victory type, which would be Statue of Liberty, are coastal tiles, which is where you're going to be settling anyway. So you're going to have a lot of production from all your harbors and everything like that. So getting a diplomatic is not hard at all. Religious, you have the ability to get up. If you're getting up your early harbors, you're probably going to get to cartography really quickly. So having those religious units being able to embark and everything really early on would be helpful as well. For culture, the fact that you have those trade routes through all those harbors, you can trade with the AI, get that extra tourism very, very early from them, and get that going as well. And then since you are on the coast, you are going to be settling probably next to some reefs that you can get some pretty decent science for as well. So you can pretty much go for anything here with them. But I would say they're not great at anything. You could go for pretty much every victory type, but I wouldn't say there's one that's head and shoulders above the rest. So Dido is also going to be one of those ones we put in score, where they're really not great at anything. They're good at some things, but I really think they don't excel at anything to the type that would push me to one victory type no matter what I get for them. The next we have is the Scythian Empire. That is Tamaris. She has the Saka horse archers. Those come on really early, as well as the Kurgan. which can give you extra faith as well as gold. That can help you with an actual tourism as well, which came with the April update. So they are actually really, really, really good at domination victories, especially in the earlier game, and with the ability to get them very, very early on, as well as getting the gold for the Kurgans, and also getting the extra little bit of faith. They're very good for the early domination types and at the lesser difficulties as well. You also get the ability to get 2 units instead of 1 for each one of those light cavalry units or the horse archers, which is really, really strong. They are very, very geared towards that domination win type. With the Scythian Empire, due to their Kurgan, you can also go for a faith-driven domination victory type, where you go ahead and use this religion or faith that you get from this Kurgans to actually potentially boost your religious victories and kind of push for that. So they're really, really good, but I think their core is domination with the potential for a religious victory on the back end with domination if you did that. So I think domination is their key advantage, though. And next we're going to Spain. Spain is a great leader. Let's see. Spanish Empire, Civ 6. They have Philip II. Philip II is known for his trade routes, getting up his, having cities on different continents, getting up some missions. They're really good at faith, as well as potentially doing pretty much any other victory type. But I really, really think, well, let's see here. They got the treasure fleet, which allows them to form naval units into fleets, armadas, and after discovering mercantilism. So that's really early on. And then triple yield bonuses for international trade routes, which is really nice. They also have the... but yeah, with their unique mission, you get tons of faith. I think they are very, very much geared towards a religious victory, but I think you can do any other victory as well on top of that. But when you think of Spain, you think of conquistadors, you think of getting up those religious units and sending them to the New World where you have your colonies. So they are very much geared towards a religious victory here, but I very much think you could also go for a culture or a science victory with them as well, piggybacking off of all those trade routes, as well, complements well with the culture victory. And then also getting a bunch of settlers on new worlds would help with science, because those missions actually provide +2 science for each adjacent holy site, and then +2 science after cultural heritage, so you can get those up as well. And since you're going to be settling on the other continents and doing colonial cities, you're probably going to be settling towards the coast, which means there's going to be some coastal reefs, which you actually get +2 adjacency for science buildings as well, which would be pretty cool. So I think they are mainly a religious city-state, a religious civilization that you can also piggyback a cultural or scientific win based on that. Moving on to the next one, we have Harold of the Norwegian Empire. They have the unique Berserker as well as the Stave Church, which replaces the temple in those holy site things. Oh, holy sites. They get some Viking longships, which are another unique unit, which is really good for early harassment. They replaces the galley. And they're very, very good at plundering and getting a lot of tiles things and stuff like that. The one fallback of Harald is that for domination, which is the victory type that you would most likely think that they would go for, the one hard part is that if any civilization has a capital that's not settled on a coast, you are going to have a tough time conquering those civilizations. You really have to be on a water map for domination to work really, really well with them. So domination does seem like the main key point you would go here. But I think they're going to be another one of those civilizations we actually pop into the score category. They're really good at pillaging. They have a unique infrastructure for the holy site, but that doesn't really mean that they get a bonus to getting that. And since Harold is pillaging all the time, he can get a bunch of resources depending on the types of things he pillages. He could get faith, he could get culture, he could get science. So what that means is you could expedite any of the wins you want, depending on what you pillage. But they're not great at one particular win type. If you're on an archipelago, then obviously domination's the case, and then I'd move them to the domination category immediately. But so the fact that they're not really, that's not going to be every single game you play. Maybe you're not, and you have a couple of oceans, but you don't have a lot. Then Herald wouldn't really be the civilization that I would go for a domination victory. I might go for, say, I conquer a couple coastal cities and then go for a scientific win because I'm next to the coast on a lot of things. Or I go for a religious victory and get an early religion. And since I have the ability to do the NAR, which allows my units to travel ocean tiles once I get shipbuilding, that would be really cool. So I really, really think they are mainly good at just pillaging is their main thing. Domination on archipelago maps, and then great or decent at everything else, but not great at anything in particular in any of those win types. Domination on sea maps is the one thing I can think of that they're really good at. But how often does that come up that you're on an archipelago map? I think you really have to build your game for Herald to be really successful in. Next, we have Saladin of the Arabic. So the Arabian civilization here with Saladin as their leader, they automatically get the last prophet in any one of their games, so you might immediately put them into the religious, which actually makes a lot of sense. But you can also think that they are also really geared towards science as well, and the reason for that is they have the madrasa, which is a unique improvement to which replaces the university. You get it earlier in the game, and you get +5 science for each one of those things, and then provides faith equal to its science output, which is really nice. I really, really think that Arabia is more geared for a science victory than it is actually a religious victory. Even though you get the last prophet, that's fine. I really think that getting that amazing science building, the madrasa, is more beneficial and leads you more to a scientific victory than it would ever to a religious victory. For Arabia, what I would personally do is actually use my religion to secure even more more science through like cross-cultural dialogue or the like, to get more science for my cities, or using something like Thai to get extra gold to build up infrastructure, or maybe doing what's the one for culture where you can get extra culture for all your followers. That way you can balance out and get a little bit more culture to advance through the civic tree even more too. So I really think they're a scientific city that has a religion to help bolster them up. I really think that Saladin is more of a scientific victory type than anything else. And you might be wrong, but if you are, go ahead and let me know down in the comments and why I'm wrong. That's good for the YouTube algorithm, and I'd love to hear your opinions about it anyway. All right, going on to our next leader, that is Victoria of the English Empire. English. We're going to go ahead and look at this. Let's see. She has the ability to get up the naval dockyards, Royal Navy dockyards as well. And let's see. She also has the British Museums, which gives you 6 artifacts instead of 3, and you can build 2 archaeologists instead of 1, which is actually really powerful for getting up those archaeologists. They also, let's see, go ahead, Victoria has the promotions of founding or building a city outside of England's home continent against a free melee unit in that city. You gain unique redcoats, which are really cool as well. And the first cities founded on each continent other than England's gets also an extra trade route capacity as well. So getting up your trade routes is really nice. I think Victoria is one of those leaders that would be really, really good for a potential science victory based upon all the gold and everything that you're getting here. And then you can also get the one, there's the one great scientist that actually gives you bonus science for each archaeologist. each artifact that you have in a city, Mary Leakey, I believe, that would help out a ton for all of these artifacts that you have too. But that is, you have to really work for that. None of these abilities actually geared straight to any one victory condition, I think. So with that being said, I think Victoria is one of those civilizations that I would really gear them towards a score victory as well. They're not exceptional at anything, but remember the score victory is that, meaning that they're not great at any one thing, but they're not exceptional at any one thing. They are decent at a little bit of everything. You can get some good culture through all the trade routes with your international cities, or your intercontinental cities. Yes. With that, you can also do domination because they have good combat strength through your sea dogs and your naval units. And you get free military units for building things on different continents. You get extra iron and coal resources. So they are not really great at any one thing. So I think they're going to be in the score category as well. Next, we have the Mayan Empire with Lady Six Sky. We are going to be looking at her, and obviously when you will first look at her civilization, you automatically see those observatories. You automatically know where she's going to be going. She's going to go straight to that science spot there. Those observatories help out with science so much. They cost half as much, and you get adjacencies from farms, which means that you can grow really, really tall, which is really good for Lady Six Sky because she has the ability to, her abilities kind of limit her from growing wide and more for tall anyway. The nice thing about the April update also gives that the farms adjacent to your observatories get an extra production as well. So it actually helps out, as well as additional gold too. So they get additional gold and production if adjacent to an observatory, which is really, really nice. And instead of just half a housing for each farm, you also get a full housing. So they are really, really geared towards a tall science victory, which is actually really nice. You could go for another victory type such as domination, or religious, or diplomatic, or culture, but those ones are kind of low on the totem pole. I would say science #1, and then culture, probably next is culture, and then you could get a religion up as well. Religion is probably on par with culture. Diplomatic and domination can happen as well, but I would say she's probably the least favorable at domination, mainly because cities that are more than 6 tiles away get a negative penalty to them, so it makes it hard to hold those for a domination victory. So I think science victory is very, very much geared towards Maya. I don't think there's really any question about that. I think you could potentially go for another victory if you really wanted to, but I think they're very good at science and decent at everything else. All right. The next leader we have is of Gran Colombia, is Simon Bolivar. He is very much geared towards a nice domination victory type 2. If you think of the domination victory types, what pops in your head? I would say Alexander pops in my head, Zulu pop in my head, Suleiman pop in my head, Scythia pops in my head, and Simon Bolivar is the 5th one that I automatically go straight towards domination. He is Lineros, are his unique unit here that replaced the cavalry. They're really, really strong. You also have lower maintenance for gold. You have the abilities, let's see, they get extra movement for all their units, so you can very much expedite your army and go straight towards the enemy. And then promoting a unit also does not end its turn, so you can snowball very, very quickly as Simon Bolivar and keep your your army going throughout the entire game, and keep going with that army and not have to slow down for anything. And you can also do the haciendas. That is a unique tile improvement. You can get extra gold production and housing, and you get extra food and production when adjacent to some plantations, which is actually really cool as well. The one thing you need to be careful of with Gran Colombia whenever you're going for a domination victory is your amenities. That might be something you have to go for, is making sure you get up those good amenities. With Simon Bolivar's unique ability to get their unique great generals as well is insanely powerful, so you can keep going and snowballing throughout each era with a new commander that you are getting every single time. It's pretty much like getting a great general every single era, which is really cool as well. That can bolster your attack of your units and keep snowballing you to a domination victory. All right, the next civilization we have is Ethiopia. Menelik II is that Ethiopian leader. And Ethiopia is one of those leaders that I personally believe can be good at anything it wants to be. The fact that they can get so much faith from the rock-hewn churches, if you pair it with the void singers, you can automatically get any other wind type you want. You can automatically get some culture victories through all the tourism, because those rock-hewn churches can give you tourism later on in the game. Paired with void singers, you can get extra science. Let's see, their trade routes get extra faith. Archaeologists, you can purchase the archaeologists or archaeological museums with faith automatically. That helps with culture a ton. Let's see, you can do council of ministers, and that gives you cities settled on hills generate extra science and culture based upon their faith output. So it's really, really snowballs once you start getting up some good faith in these cities to any other win condition you want. So I think they are going to go into the everything category. I think you can make the argument with this civilization to go straight for religion, but the fact that they're so strong in pretty much anything else they want, you can pretty much go for any other victory type you want to. I think the one thing they would lack the least on is probably domination, but everything else is really, really strong for Ethiopia. They're a really strong civilization. You should consider playing them. I really enjoy them a lot. Next, we have the second French Catherine de Dimici. De Medici. Jeez, I want to put another in there. Catherine de Medici. This is going to be the Magnificence Catherine. And I just recently did a playthrough with her, and I really enjoyed playing with her because you get a lot of extra things from culture based on luxury resources. Magnificence Catherine is based upon luxuries and wonders. She's really, really good on getting all of that tourism and stuff from her her extra production from tourism for medieval, Renaissance, and industrial era wonders. She gets the Grand Tour, gets extra production. She also gets you can also do what are they called? They have a unique court festivals can be performed as well, which for each one of your additional luxury resources, you can get culture and tourism, and you can get that immediately once you lay down your first theater square. You don't have to wait for any unique building in there. It is really, really helpful for getting up a tourism really quickly. Unlike Eleanor of France, this Catherine is very, very, very good at culture. She's really, really great at that. It almost makes me want to put the other Catherine into a score victory because she's kind of decent at it, but I think she's more good at a culture victory than she is in anything else. But yeah, Magnificent Catherine definitely going into that culture victory type as well. Next, we're going to Rough Rider Teddy. Back to the Americas. This one is a very interesting leader, and I think this one is actually going to go straight towards its friend up to the north with Canada here and going for a diplomatic game. The reason for that is this one is very geared towards kind of having your home continent kind of thing, and then it also he likes peaceful civilizations and things like that. Rough Rider Teddy does not have the bonuses like Bull Moose Teddy, where they get bonuses for all their national parks or getting extra science or culture. They are very much more geared towards their diplomatic favor or combat strength as well. I think for this Rough Rider Teddy, you could also make the decision for domination if you wanted, if you were on a Pangea map and you just have one or two continents. But I really think diplomatic is the way to go with them. What you could do is you can just build up your army to control everything and kind of be the world police, per se, of the entire world. I don't think you have to go to war with them, but I think they are very much a civilization that needs to just kind of just turtle up once they build up their empire. Next, we have the Byzantine Empire with Basil II. I believe that they are probably one of those cities. Blah, 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 blah. Basil II is really good at some religious domination games where you found a religion and then use your unique units. Not that one. Which one is it? It's the Tagma, to go ahead and go to war with everyone. They also are supported by a hippodrome that you can get the even war Tagmas from. They are a unique unit that replaces the entertainment complex, which has a lower production cost, so you can keep your amenities high while you're at war. They are very, very good at spreading their religion, and then extra combat strength for each converted holy site, which is really, really good. So I think you could either put them into religious or domination. I'm probably going to put them into religious, but domination is very, very high up there as well. I think they're neck and neck. I think for this one I have to flip a coin, mainly because I don't think I could put them into the everything or score, because they're not that great at either a cultural or science victory or even diplomatic. They pretty much are geared to getting a religious victory or and then probably supplemented by a domination victory as well. What you could do is you could dominate a couple of civilizations and then just convert the rest of the other ones. I think that's probably their strongest suit, and that's what I would do with Basil II if I was in their shoes. If I was playing with them, I would go ahead and get a religion, declare war on another civilization, maybe take over there, double my empire size, and then just convert the rest of the civilizations and not have to worry about that. Or go ahead and continue my domination and make a snowball effect of my dominating units with the hippodromes and tagmas. So I think they are more geared to the religion, though, based upon the fact that they have so many bonuses for spreading my religion. The next civilization we have is the Gauls, or the Gaelic civilization, with Amborix. This civilization has some good abilities with like mines getting your extra culture and triggering a culture bomb. And then specialty districts do not receive. The one thing that is bad about the Gauls is they don't receive adjacency bonuses from other districts and cannot be built against the city center as well. So that kind of hurts them a lot, but they do have a really early warrior that they can get up and going that gets extra combat strength from adjacent units around it, as well as a unique industrial zone, the Opidum, which has lots of lower production and gets a major adjacency bonus from each quarry, which helps a ton. So while it might seem that the Gauls might have something for culture, with all their abilities and everything like that, I would say that the Gauls are probably the least best at culture. Just because they have the culture here does not mean they're great at a culture victory. A lot of their things actually make appeal of things really low, which appeal is really key for going for a civil. Tourism is key for going for a cultural victory. The fact that the Opidum lowers appeal, the fact that all these mines are going to lower your appeal, you aren't going to be able to get up national parks or anything like that. You could still get up some theater squares and everything like that, but the fact that specialty districts do not receive adjacencies from bonuses from other districts, you aren't going to be getting bonuses for things like getting entertainment complexes next to theater squares and stuff anymore. There's a lot of extra things that you're going to have issues with when trying to do for a tourism or culture victory. So I think Amborix is really, really, really good for a domination victory that is supplemented by their culture bombs, their culture that they get from those mines to keep in that technology, keep into the civic race. to make sure they keep getting those civics. But I think they are very, very geared towards a domination victory rather than something like a culture victory, which what their abilities would lead you to believe at first. I think that culture just kind of supplements in there because you're going to be in domination mode, where you probably won't be getting a lot of passive culture from a lot of your tiles or anything like that. This gives you that passive culture and allows you to just keep going and not have to worry about building theater squares to keep up with the AI on that front, and keeps you through that civic tree as you're going through with your domination. So I'm going to put Gaul into the domination category. All right, next civilization we have is the Babylonian Empire with Hammurabi as their leader. They are a interesting civilization because they get automatically minus 50% science per turn no matter what you do. So it's actually really hard to get up your science per turn. But the nice thing about them in counteraction to that is that Eureka's instantly unlocks their respective technology rather than just getting a bonus to it. So you can get through a lot of technologies very quickly just by getting it boosted rather than actually having to work your science for it. So they also get an extra a unique unit as well as the Palgum, which replaces the watermill. This civilization, I think, while it has its downfalls of its science per turn, I think it is very geared towards either a domination style play or a scientific style play. Cultural style play really doesn't make sense with Babylon here. And religious and diplomatic really doesn't make sense either. That when you build a specialty district for the first time, you get the free first building in it. So if you build a theater square, you automatically get an amphitheater. If you build a campus, you automatically get a library. If you build an industrial zone, you automatically get a workshop. So that really helps out getting any of your first districts up. But I really think that Hammurabi is really designed for a scientific win or domination win. If you rush something like, you could rush bombards, you could rush biplanes, you could rush all that kind of stuff if you wanted to. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put Babylon into the science category here. They take a major penalty there, but I think that they are best suited there. Domination could be a very close second, though. And then you could argue that culture would be third, and then religious and diplomatic probably towards the bottom there. They're decent at those, good at culture, great at domination and science. The next civilization we have is the Vietnamese. Batriu is their leader. They are a civilization that is very unique, where you have to have either woods, rainforest, or marsh tiles to build any districts on them. You also get additional yields if you put districts on them, and then once you get the medieval fairs civic, you can actually plant woods, which you would have to wait all the way for conservation for in a normal game with a normal leader. So they're a very, very cool and interesting kind of leader. A lot of their abilities and their unique ability, a lot of their abilities lead straight for a culture victory in my mind, mainly because the Thon is one of those unique districts that they have that replaces the encampment. It gives you extra culture for each adjacent district, so kind of acts like a it acts like a government plaza for culture, and it provides tourism for each culture adjacency bonus after flight as well. So if you have a Thon in the middle of your city and a Thon in the middle of your circle of districts, you're going to get a lot of adjacency for culture as well as extra tourism for there. Though you could very much make a case for extra science or anything like that, because if you have a lot of rainforest around you and you settle a lot of cities on rainforest, you get extra science. But I really think Batriu is really geared towards a culture victory here. They just have those bonuses there. They also have their ability to drive out the aggressors. What you could do is you could also vouch for Batriu to be a domination type victory. The fact that she has such good combat strength on some removable features like woods, rainforests, and marshes, where she can get extra bonuses from being on those tiles and have extra combat strength to push those units out of there, or to just turtle up as well. There's a reason why they have their turtle in there, because it's Vietnam, but they are the turtle civ, if there was one. They can very much turtle up to make sure that they are defended well, and can make sure that they don't get dominated. So I think, but based upon their abilities and based upon everything we've already talked about, I think culture victories are the best for them, mainly because the Thon's going to help out with that early game culture, as well as getting up their tourism once you hit flight. So with Batriu, I'm going to put her as a culture victory, with probably domination as second, and then everything else she's okay and decent at. So, but culture victory is going to win out for Batriu. Next, we have our two Kublai Khans. I think the first is Mongolia. Let's go ahead and do that. So he's Mongolian. So Kublai Khan of Mongolia has a little bit different ability here, where he gets an extra economic policy slot, and then given and gains an extra random eureka and inspiration upon establishing a trading post in another major civilization. This pairs well with Mongolia's bonus of getting a trade route. Their trade routes instantly create a trading post in the cities, so you automatically get that rather than at the end of your trade route. You get it automatically in the beginning, and you also get extra combat strength for that as well, being the Mongols. With that, you also get the Urdu. I think this version of Kublai Khan isn't actually fared a lot towards combat victories. So domination is actually not a huge play for this civilization. You're actually more geared towards trade than you are actually into domination. So with this type of Kublai Khan, I'd actually place him more into the score rather than I would to anything else. Domination is probably close, but I think everything else is more geared. You can argue any other one depending on the map you have, or the area and terrain, or the other AI around you. I really, really think that the Kublai Khan of Mongolia is not geared towards the domination so much as Genghis Khan is. All right, for the Chinese Kublai Khan, I think this falls into the category just kind of like the other Chinese one does. The fact that they still have the Great Walls to be able to be built, everything like that, they are going straight to culture. I think that they have the ability to get the trade routes up with their Kublai Khan's unique ability of getting the extra additional economic policy, as well as the random eureka and inspiration for your trading posts. Trade routes are going to be prioritized here. So getting them up and going is going to be good early game, and getting that early trade route means early tourism, which means a better culture victory. I think you can't go wrong with getting them in a culture victory no matter what you do. They do have the Crouching Tiger for good defensive, but I really, really think that Kublai Khan of the Chinese Empire is geared more towards the culture victory. And then lastly, we have good old Portugal. Portugal is a really unique civilization that really thrives off of trade routes. They also thrive off of international trade routes, and then they have better trade routes on water. They get extra sight for a lot of their units, and then extra trade route capacity when you meet more other civilizations, as well as open borders with all city-states. They do get a navigation school, which gives you extra production towards naval units, great admiral points, extra science, and then extra science for each each lake or coast tiles in the city. I think that Portugal is a very, very good civilization. I think that their victory type that they most go for is actually a science victory type. But I think you can make the argument with all their trade routes, you could go into anything else you want. You're going to be earning tons and tons of gold to be able to buy whatever you want. It's very easy to go with all those trade routes straight for a culture victory. You can easily go for a religious victory because you're going to have all those trade routes to get you put a religious pressure on other civilizations. Diplomatic would be good too because you're just trading with everyone. You're probably not going to be going to war too much, potentially. Or you could flip that on its head and just use your trade routes to do internal trade routes or to city-states and then go to war with everyone else. So I actually think Zhao is actually going to go to the everything category. He's one of the last ones I think I'm going to put here. He can pretty much do whatever you want. I think he's kind of like Montezuma, where the amount of gold he's earning is going to pretty much make it so that you can go for any victory type you want. I do think, though, the science victory type is going to be your best bet based upon the fact that they have the navigation school. But I think with the gold purchasing, you can pretty much go for any other victory type, and I think the everything is going to be your key to success. So, Zhao, do whatever you want with him. But I think everything with a leaning towards the science victory type for Zhao the Third. And lastly, there's an Eleanor. I have two of those by accident in here. We have two of those Eleanors right there. So she's just going to go and score as well. So she's just doubled up there. But here is our final Civ 6 tier list for our leaders for based upon their victory type. So in science, we have Germany, we have Pachacuti we have Sumeria, we have Scotland, we have Korea, we have Arabia, we have Lady Six Sky, and we have Hammurabi. For culture, we have Wilhelmina with all her fabulous trades. We have the Chinese Empire. We have Gorgo. We have Teddy Roosevelt, Bull Moose Teddy. We have Kupe. We have Cleopatra. We have Greece. Both Greeces in here, actually. We have both, I think, all three French. Yes, all three French leaders are in here. We have the Congo. We have Cyrus. We have Pedro II. We have Sweden, of course, Batriu, and Kublai Khan of the, not the Chinese. It is the Chinese Kublai Khan as well. For religious, we have Gandhi. We have Tamar. We have Peter, who could have gone to culture or science as well. Probably culture next. We have Philip II. And we have the Byzantine Empire with Basil II. For diplomatic, we have Canada and Rough Rider Teddy. These ones could probably fit something else. I could have put him into a culture victory, and I could have put Rough Rider into domination. I think either of those would be viable choices as well. And then domination, we have the good old chaps. We have Alexander, you have Chandragupta, you have the Aztecs, you have the Mathis of Hungary, you have Nubia, you have Suleiman, Zulu, Genghis Khan, Lataro, Scythia, Simon Bolivar, and Ambator, the Gauls. You have civilizations that are good at pretty much any win condition. You choose these guys, whatever the game plays out to, you go to it for your heart's consent. And that's going to be Trojan, that's going to be Khmer, that's going to be Montezuma, that's going to be John Curtin of Australia, you have Hojo of Japan, you have Poundmaker of the Cree, you have Menelik II of Ethiopia, and you have Zhao III of Portugal. And then we got the score victory type, or more rather the I'm not great at anything category. So there we're going to have Poland. We're going to have Eleanor of, I think this is Eleanor of England. Yep. Then you have Katarja. You have Dido, Harald, Victoria, Kublai Khan of Mongolia, and another Eleanor, because we have two. So that wraps it up for our Civ 6 leader tier list for domination type. Or not domination type, victory type. If you guys have any disagreements, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. I'd really appreciate your input. It'd be really fun to see what this community thinks about this. I'd like to see someone try this on their own, see what they come up with. I'd love to hear the differing opinions. So if you guys want to do that, go ahead and leave a comment down below. If you guys, I'm actually streaming this live on Twitch as well. If you guys want to follow me on Twitch, that's also going to be in the description below. And thank you guys so much for watching. Have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.